Hi everybody, it's Little Happy Mess. Welcome to my channel. Today's episode is about gaslighting and narcissism. Well, mainly narcissism, and gaslighting is a mean that narcissists use. And this topic is really important to me because the chances you end up in some narcissistic relationship of any kind are very high, and also because my forehead somehow says narcissism welcome. So I really wanna talk about this today. On the surface she looks fine, but what's inside ain't always in line. Life is good, life is bad. She's a mess, but a happy one. Hi, I'm Little Happy Miss, and welcome to my podcast. Quoting myself. Sometimes their stories are so good that you wonder why they never asked about yours. Story time. So this quote I just mentioned, it's not from me this time. It's from a psychiatrist that has a YouTube channel, which I really like and will mention in the further material section, by Dr. Ramani. And I think it's really, it really says it all. And the reason why I want to talk about narcissism, like I said in the intro already, it affected me in many ways, and I kind of draw those people into my life all the time. And I realized too late, which is not good. But I think I'm getting better. Anyway, usually when narcissists enter your life, it's when you're in a not so stable situation, and if you would consider yourself an emotional, empathic person, you usually lack or think you lack the qualities of, being stable. Sometimes this strength is something you're missing, and a narcissist promises all that. So typical narcissistic behavior is this black-white thinking. So there's only one truth, and they are very, consistent. There's one opinion, and they seem very strong, like they have it all figured out, and they always know what to do, what to think, what to believe. And it gives you a lot of security and stability. And an example would be, I think you've been there as well. You stand in front of the tea section, you're like, which tea am I gonna take? And the decision costs you like 10 minutes. And it's really not an important decision, but you just stand there like, And a narcissist would know what tea to go for, because he always takes the same, or okay, I have that and that, so I take this tea or whatever. So you would never find a narcissist in that position, in my opinion. And like I said, the narcissism and emotionally unstable or not so stable personality structures seem to attract each other, because you have the qualities that the narcissist lacks, and the narcissist has the qualities you think you lack. And it can be a perfect match, because what's very important to me is to say that not all narcissists are evil. It's only a problem, or it becomes a problem, when it goes pathological. So we all have different personality structures. And if you would read the ICD-10, I don't have it here, but if you would, I do. So this, it's the book full of, or the international classification of psychological diseases. And you would find yourself somewhere in there. You could basically find everybody in there because we all tend to certain behaviors, and it's not a problem. It's not a problem to be very sure what you want and to like empathy a bit, as long as it doesn't become too extreme and toxic in some kind of way. And I'm not saying that the narcissist is the most evil of all. Everybody who's stuck in a pattern doesn't contribute to society or his community, her community, and can be dangerous in some way or can be toxic in some way. It's also hard to deal with someone who is like super depressed all the time because you don't know what to do. You may be scared they take their life or whatever. So none of those are good. But yeah, if you take a pathologic narcissist and a pathologic borderliner, they're like the worst combination, but they somehow seem to attract each other. And this is like taking fire and adding spirit. It's like this is like the most toxic combination you could probably think of. But they attract each other. And what narcissists do is they kind of like they weave webs. So they don't have friendships or relationships. They create codependencies. So they do that with money or leverage they have against you or whatsoever. So they make you dependent to them in some way, and they take you in their net, and they don't want to let you out. And they manipulate. They're very manipulative, and they have a very, very fragile self-value and self-esteem. So usually they had a really bad childhood, and they need to protect their self-value at any cost because it's so fragile, and they're really afraid it bursts. And they do so by being the best, the greatest, and they always have to keep everybody else beneath them. So they talk people down, they talk situations down, they talk success down, achievement whatsoever, because they fear that if somebody's better than them, greater than them, then they are harmed in their perception of self-value. And when the bubble bursts, it's very dangerous actually, because they can become super suicidal because they kind of lose it all. So what an emotional person sees is this very scared and frightened person sees or feels. So you kind of pity them, and you try to overwhelm them with or cure them with your love and compassion and affection, which is really the completely wrong thing, because what happens is that you get emotionally drained and maybe end up in depression or in insecurity or whatsoever. And one method they use to create their dependencies is gaslighting. And gaslighting is when it goes back to a movie, and in this movie the husband, he like turns down the gas bulbs so they're not as bright as they were before, and the wife notices that the room is darker, so she asks the husband if he dimmed the light, and he said no. She keeps asking him, but he always says no, he didn't do it, until she starts to question her own reality and goes mad. And that's exactly what they do. So they deny things they did, and they make you start question your reality. It sounds really stupid, like, oh, I would never fall for that. But usually victims of gaslighting have been victims or have fallen victims very often, so they're already used to it, and they do it in a really smart way. So they would do something. They would like I don't know, say, "Oh, you did that," and then they are really mean and stuff like that. And when you ask them, they they find like a proper excuse why they behaved in that way, and they put the blame on you, or they completely deny that they did something, and they do that so often that you're not sure anymore if some things really happen, or if it wasn't because you caused it, because it was your fault. And you can see that very clearly, which is really sad, in abusive relationships where, let's assume husband wife situation, the husband is the gaslighting partner, where the wives are being hit or abused in any kind of way, and in front of friends and family they would make up excuses because they think they deserve that behavior because the husband told them so. um, yeah, when you do that, I have to react that way. It's all your fault, and blah 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 blah, and all that. It's really bad. And the problem why people end up in narcissistic relationships is because they they don't show everything at once. So at the beginning, they are very charming and they're very polite and gentle men or ladies, and they are so generous and kind, and they do a lot for you, and they introduce you to their exciting life and their exciting personality. They're very eccentric, and as soon as you get hooked, they start showing their real personality, but you still have that Prince Charming thing in your head, so you always go back to that, and you don't really see what's happening because you're already in this weave, in this net, and yeah, so that's the thing. Wisdom. Whew, I talked a lot now, I think. Now I'd like to provide some wisdom. First of all, it's very hard for narcissists to get treatment because usually they don't feel they're the problem, but everybody else is. Um, it's only diagnosed if the person has a problem with it and goes to the doctor. Uh, as long as you don't feel you have a problem, you don't have a disease, and that's why that's why they don't go to the doctor, because they don't have a problem with their behavior. It's their environment that really suffers. And actually, I've heard this. I don't know if it's true, but they, because this is the ICD-10, and in the next version they don't even want to include it anymore. Because it's just so common, which is really shit. And for doctors or psychotherapists, it's also really hard to treat them because they're kind of dangerous. They start suing you or sabotage you, and most therapists or psychiatrists don't even want to work with them, because it's just really really tiring and really hard, and you have to be really careful. And I wouldn't want to work with one either, but that's because I'm just too, like, they trigger me. I can't. I just can't help them. And yes, so I wanted to mention that, and so how to cope with it, because the chances you are in a narcissistic relationship in some way are very high, because it can be your boss, it can be a relative, but then also maybe you have a boyfriend, girlfriend, and their parents, their uncle, whatsoever is, and you kind of need to cope with them. And the best way is to not get involved in the net. Don't get into the net. Don't receive expensive presents. Don't enter contracts. Don't enter pseudo contracts like you give me that, I give you that. No, 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 no. Don't get into the web. Don't, especially don't borrow their money. It's not a good idea. And if you're already sucked into the net, try to get out as soon as possible. It it's not good for you. Because at one point, when everybody's out of the net, because you should tell other people too if they are like receptive for that information, they maybe realize that something's wrong when they have no codependencies anymore. And the other thing is, they're very arrogant and they trigger you, but just keep in mind that they have this very low self value, and maybe by having that in mind, it's easier for you to cope with them, and you can like oversee that and just let them have their thing. Don't contribute to their greatness, just let them be great and don't comment it and don't argue against it. And never call them off, so never never tell them to their face that they're a narcissist. First of all, they won't believe it anyway, and second of all, they're gonna sabotage you. They're gonna like try to make your life miserable, and that's definitely not worth it. And they always have a lot of friends or codependencies or however you want to call it, and they'll just call them up, and then everybody's gonna be against you, and it's definitely not worth it, I'm telling you. And if you really, really, really need something from them and you don't know how to get it another way, then a short-term strategy is to compliment them or to, I don't know, excuse your behavior for something. Like put yourself beneath them, even though it's like you really don't want to do it. Because, when you compliment them and when you let them live in their greatness, they are really easy to manipulate as well. And you might get what you need. Just don't do it too often, because, they get greater with each compliment, and they kind of like blow up like balloons, and you don't want to see that. And I hope I could give you some input, I could share some experiences, and you enjoyed this episode. Further material. So today's further material is, first of all, the YouTube channel from Dr. Romani. Most of the wisdom I included is from her, and her episodes are very specific, so they're stating as parents, and she really like gets to the point and gives you like real advice that you can really use. And she made it her, life exercise to talk about narcissism, because so many of her patients are or have oh my God, they have a problem, not because it's their problem, but because they are in the weave of some narcissistic person. And the second material I'd like to provide is a book from a friend of mine. He's diagnosed with narcissism in some kind of way, and it's really, really interesting because his bubble bursted, and he really lets you like into his brain, into his thoughts, into his feelings, and it's very interesting. It was really good for me to read because it really like showed me how shit it is when you're in that body, in that brain, and it's really like interesting how I could relate my own story to his story. And the book is like, it's really great, and it's not expensive, and I'll put a link in the description or the show notes. Yes, so we're at the end of this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go to my Instagram, Little Happy Mess with underscores, or leave something in the comments, subscribe, like, and I'd love hearing from you. I wish you a great weekend. I wish you a bright day, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.